Hello everyone, Reginald Scott here. Welcome to the video. Great to see you all again, and I hope you're all doing absolutely excellent today. Today we have a review of this device here, which is a cycling computer. It is the IGPSPORT BSC200. Now, today's review is not going to be extremely in-depth. It's going to be a general overview of my feelings and opinions about this computer, what it's been like for me to get to use this thing over the last few months. And yeah, like I say, my general opinion on whether it's a good device or not. Now, I like to keep things for quite a long time before I do reviews. And I know that can be frustrating for people, especially if they're eager to find out what my opinion is on something. We can all pretend today that my opinion actually matters. But one of my long-term sort of subscribers who often comments on my videos was looking to buy this device, and they really wanted to have my input on whether I thought this thing was any good or not. So that's what we're doing here today. I'm going to tell you what I really think about this thing from the time that I've had with it, which is a few months. Like I say, I would like to have it longer because problems do tend to develop with time. Perhaps if anything does happen with this device at a later stage, I will just have to make a short video letting you know what the issue is. But so far, so good. And so what I did was I put together a little questionnaire that I put on my channel in a little vote. And on that vote, I listed a bunch of different devices that were available for about the same price range, to be honest with you. And they're all fairly, non-mainstream brand sort of Chinese computers and things. Anyway, I put it to vote, and this thing is what won the vote, basically. Now, that could be because a lot of people already have this device and they've gotten used to it and they like it, and so therefore they voted in favor of it. Or it could be that the majority of people just want to know about this device because they're looking to buy. I'll talk about the price of this one first. This was very cheap. I think I paid around 100 Brunei dollars for this thing, which is same as 100 Singaporean or 100 Australian. I'll stick the conversion rate for US dollars on the screen so you get an idea. And with it, I got a heart rate monitor as well, which is something that I actually wanted. Now, with this device, when I bought it on AliExpress, they had a bunch of different options of what you could select with it. And I wanted the heart rate monitor, but I didn't want some of the other junk that came with it. So I think I ended up spending more than I needed to, just because of the way the packages were set up. If you just want the device with nothing else, I think it's around 60 Brunei dollars, so very cheap right now. I think it's 40% off. So for the price, this is really good, to be honest with you. Like I say, let me show you some of the history of my devices. So first two devices I ever had, I had one of those really old-fashioned cycling computers on one of my first bikes. It was very basic. It just slid onto a mount that fit to your handlebars. It had a long cable that ran down your front fork, and there was a magnet sensor. So basically, it was just sensing the rotations of the wheel. I had one of those, and that lasted me absolutely donkey's years. And then I bought another one, which was the Cat's Eye brand. Again, just a sensor and a wire. I didn't have any kind of Bluetooth device or anything like that, or a wireless one, for a very long time. And then I went straight from that to a Polar computer, which I no longer have this Polar computer. I can't remember what model it was. It kind of had a round face, almost looked like a watch. And I had that for absolutely donkey's years as well. And it was very reliable, and it had a heart rate monitor. It was the first heart rate monitor I ever had, and all that sort of thing. And then after that, I basically just stayed with Polar. After that one, about 8 years ago, I bought this, which is the Polar M450, which I still have, as you can see. And then after this one, I replaced it with this one, which was the M460. And the main reason I bought the M460 was I wanted a better battery life. And I was informed by the local Polar dealer that this would have a better battery life. And initially it did, but it's been exposed to the sun so much that the battery has actually died. And if you look here, you can see a small crack here and here. That is actually the lithium-ion battery in there swelling, and it's actually cracked the case. And I think that was a result of the device overheating or something in the Brunei weather. But yeah, I stayed basically faithful to Polar for many, many years. One of the features I liked about these is they were very small, they were very simple, and they were very light. They weren't necessarily particularly cheap, but like I say, I was looking for that that reliability, that small size. As you can see, my current computer is significantly bigger than what I'm used to, screen-wise and everything. The screen is slightly, well, the face of the computer is slightly bigger, the body is slightly bigger, but the screen is significantly bigger. Now this is already big enough for me. I'll just show you the weight of the computer in comparison with the Polar devices. Again, I really was looking for something to replace the Polar. I didn't want anything too heavy. This one with the swollen battery is 51 grams. And this one is 52 grams, even though it doesn't have a swollen battery. 51 again, sorry. So yeah, they're the same weight. This with the lanyard, which is going to add maybe a gram or two, is coming in at 67. So I don't like that fact. I don't like the fact that it's heavier. But there isn't really much out there nowadays that's going to be lighter than this, because people demand so much functionality. The good thing about this is the battery life is fantastic. With the Polar, I could probably get about 4 rides out of it, say 4 rides of 40 to 50 kilometers. And then this thing was completely flat and it would require charging. And as I say, when the battery started swelling, I was charging it every day. This is about the same. So this thing is fantastic. I charge this thing monthly at the most, to be honest with you. It can take so many rides before the battery wears down. It's absolutely fantastic in that respect. The battery life has been brilliant, certainly better than any device I've ever had before. So I like that aspect. One of the issues I had with this when I first got it was getting used to the controls, because I'd been on these things for so long. I was so used to the controls, and I actually did find this quite frustrating at first. And I must admit, I'm not a big fan of the controls on this device. So we've got a power button here. We've got sort of a cycle button here, a play pause button here, and 2 up and down arrows, and then another menu button up here, which is also an enter button as well. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buttons. Now the Polar has got 5 buttons. We've got this big red one on the top, a small one here, and 2 arrow buttons. But really, realistically, with the Polar, you only ever use 3 of these buttons. This one is just a backlight button. So you only press this really when you want to either lock the controls or turn the backlight on. The cool thing about the Polar as well is it also has a little light on the top there, which is a safety warning light that comes on automatically when it gets dark. There's a little light sensor here. So if you forget your lights or you get caught out in bad weather, it's got a very bright LED here that starts flashing, or it can be solid if you want, automatically when it starts to get dark. So that's a nice feature of this light computer. This does not have a light, as you can see. It is backlit, this one. It comes with quite a bright backlit screen. But like I say, the controls, a little bit frustrating. I'll tell you why they're frustrating. The Polar device is very intuitive, I think. As I say, you've got a clear light symbol for the, or sun symbol for the light. You've got a clear stop button and start button, and you've got, a stop button and 2 menu buttons, 2 arrow buttons, and this big red button is clearly like push to go kind of thing. And that's all you do with this. You basically turn it on, press go, and off you go. And when you're finished, you press stop to stop the ride, press and hold for 3 seconds to save the ride, and that's it. You just let the device sit there, and there's no real power button. You just let it turn itself off after so many seconds. The big red button is start and new lap. So if you're riding and you're doing laps of a circuit, you just hit the big red button every time you pass your lap, and that saves another lap. So really intuitive, really easy to use. Basically, one button is on, stop, and save. Everything in one go. Oh, and connect to device is all through this button. It's just how long you press it basically depends on what action it does. This one is a little bit more complicated, and it took me forever to turn the thing off the first time I got it. So it's power button on. Takes a few seconds to warm up. And then the menu buttons I find a little bit confusing. For example, this is a return, as far as I'm concerned, a return button, but it's also the power button. But you can't turn it off with this button. So if you press and hold this button, it says, do you want to power off? Now, I was looking to turn off, so I just kept pressing this and nothing would happen, right?
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
So press and hold again. It asks me again, do I want to power off? Now, the power off symbol is right next to this up arrow. But if you press the arrows, obviously, you just change the option. You don't turn the thing off. The way you turn it off is this button up here, which to me looks like text and play. It's like the symbol for text and play. This does not look like an enter key to me. I wish this thing had a standard, almost like a computer keyboard enter symbol, because that would make things a lot easier. This is actually the enter key. So when you press that, it then selects that option. I find this quite confusing. Again, if you're used to these kind of devices, perhaps you wouldn't find it confusing. Maybe I'm just getting old.
Old woman! Man! Ma'am, sorry. I'm 37. What? I'm 37. I'm not old.
We've also, see this here, you've got settings and ride. These two do correspond with these two buttons. But what I find, again, frustrating is these two have completely different symbols on them. But if I do want settings, I press this one and then back button. And if I want ride, I press this button. So the fact they have totally different symbols doesn't really matter in a sense, because the options correspond with the location on the screen with regards to the location of the buttons. But if I'm turning the device off, the location of the button doesn't correspond with the location of the option. Does that make sense? So let's just press it pretending we're on a ride, for example, and it will stop immediately because we're not moving. I have this set to, I think, 5 kilometers an hour to cut off. So let's pretend we've just had a ride there and we want to finish the ride. I was pressing all of these buttons trying to get the damn thing to shut off, and it was not performing well. So eventually I found this. I pressed this and then you can save. Now again, it's this enter key here which is closest to save. So that allows me to save and then I can delete. And again, even though this delete option is down here where these two buttons are, these are not any of the buttons you need to select this delete. So we have to arrow key down to delete, and then we have to press this enter button again. And then you have to press the enter button again. All right. With this computer, everything takes 2 or 3 steps. Again, with the Polar, it's all one step basically. It's push to stop, push to end the ride or whatever, or push to save, and then push to connect to your other device, your mobile phone, for example, to upload your ride. This one takes 2 or 3 steps, different buttons, different options, in order to get the same job done. So I don't think this device is very efficient button-wise. I honestly think you could get rid of at least 1 button here, maybe even 2 buttons, and just have 2 selection keys and an enter key, and maybe a power button separate. The other thing that really annoyed me about this was I was doing a long ride. I was about 70 kilometers into a 120 kilometer ride, and I stopped by a shop, and I left the computer outside, paused. And after I'd been in the shop for quite a while looking for something to eat, I came back and my computer had shut itself off. And I thought, oh, okay, fair enough. So I turned the computer back on and there was no option to continue the ride. It just gone. It just shut itself off and cleared the screen. I was like, okay, well, that's fine. It probably saved my ride. I thought, I will just start a new ride and carry on. So that's what I did. When I got home, the first 70 kilometers of my ride had completely disappeared. It was not saved at all. It pauses itself when you stop, and I assumed that pause would just stay paused while I was in the shop. But pause is only temporary. If you want to pause it for a long period of time, you have to press the pause button as well as the device pausing.
Are we still talking about sex?
Sounds complicated. Or as you're riding up to stop, while the device is still playing, or playing the ride if you like, you have to press pause manually to get it to stop, right? So I didn't do that. I just left it on the pause screen, which was the auto pause. And in auto pause, the device after a while will shut itself off and it will not save your ride data that was on there, which, like I say, is a little bit frustrating. Now, let's hit that ride button again, and I'll show you my screens. Now, the first time I got this, the screen information on here was really annoying because it had a bunch of stuff on here that I didn't need, and it had some things that I wanted that I couldn't get on my screen at the same time. So, for example, I wanted speed and I wanted my average speed, but I couldn't find a page that had speed, average speed, and heart rate all on the same screen. Couldn't get it. When I cycled through the options, it wasn't available. Same for time and distance. Maybe I wanted time, distance, and average speed. That wasn't available for whatever reason. But I didn't find anything on the IGPSPORT website. They were very unhelpful. I didn't find anything in the manual for the IGPSPORT. The manual was completely useless. It didn't tell me at all how to operate the computer properly or how to change options. But what I found was the review that I will post down below. They did tell me that it was in fact possible to modify my own screen, which is brilliant. So the screen you're looking at now is one of my custom screens. So now I have all my screens set up with custom information. So this is my general day-to-day screen. It might also be my racing screen because, like I say, I've got my speed, my average speed, my heart rate, my time, and my distance. Those to me are the most important things I would ever need to look at. And I can ride pretty much the full ride without ever changing this screen because I've got all the information I really want. Then I have another screen. This is my endurance screen, or what I call my endurance screen. I have the time of day, I have the distance, I have the elapsed time, and then I've also got calories burned and outside temperature, which I find useful because with that I can sort of say to myself, oh, I should be drinking more or hydrating better if the temperature is really high. We've got speed, heart rate, gradient, and elevation and total ascent. So this is my climbing screen. This is my custom climbing screen. There's another standard climbing screen on the device that has a graph, which I quite like. Here we are. This is the elevation screen. This one is nice, but obviously the information here is limited. It just shows you a graph of the hill that you're going up. It shows you the grade, it shows you the elevation. But the other information, which I get here, I find very useful. There is also a navigation screen, which I haven't turned on. I haven't used navigation on here simply because I live in Brunei. It's a tiny country and I know pretty much all the roads here. So really, there's no point at which you will ever get lost in Brunei. It's literally impossible.
Lost.
It's utterly useless for me showing you the navigation because I've never used it. But supposedly the navigation is all right. It's very basic. It's just an arrow, kind of points in different directions with a little road map. But it's not very detailed. It's a cheap device. And I'm so glad it is possible to customize because that, to me, makes all the difference with regards to usability of this thing. This is the plastic bag of stuff that I got. There was a box with it, but the box isn't that interesting. It's just a cardboard box. So we've got our USB-C cable here. I got the heart rate monitor, which has been absolutely fine. The polar heart rate monitor, a little bit more expensive, comes with a little plastic push button, as you can see. And again, I find this really easy to open and close, even in the dark in the morning when I'm getting ready before my wife has got out of bed or my kids are awake. I find this useful for putting on in the dark because I know it's very audible when it clicks together, and it's actually really easy to open blind as well. This one, on this particular heart rate monitor for the IGPSPORT, is just a hook. It's very simple. It appears to be a plastic coated piece of metal, so it's fairly sturdy. It's not just a piece of flimsy plastic, but in the dark, it's a little bit fiddlier. When you're trying to stretch it around your body and hook it in, it's a little bit more fiddly, a little bit less easy to use. I've had no issues with the heart rate monitor strap at all. The heart rate on this has been very good, very reliable. I noticed with the Polar device before that certain devices would interfere with it. I haven't had much interference on this particular device. The weight of these devices, I think it's about the same, to be honest with you. I don't notice any significant difference. 18 grams, 20 grams. Oh, the Polar's heavier, 21 grams. So there you go. More stuff that only weight weenies are bothered about. Talking about weight weenies, let's look at how the device actually connects to the bike. So You have, just like a polar computer, you have a series of little keyed mounts. This is the polar one, so it just snaps in there like that. And I like to heavily modify these. As you can see, I cut all the nubs off, which are used with these rubber straps, to make them as lightweight as possible, and then I attach them via a cable tie to my stem, just to make them as light as possible. I don't bother with the rubberized mounts that come with them. I don't bother with their rubberized holders or anything. I strip everything down as much as I can. I drill big holes in them just to lighten them up as much as possible. I do the same thing with the mounts for the IG Sport. I'll show you what that looks like in the screen as well. But one thing that I got that I didn't want was this, which was an outboard mount for this IG Sport. You'll notice the mount is missing. That is now on one of my bikes. I've modified it to fit on one of my other bikes, the shopping bike, which I don't care about the weight of so much. So I got this thing. This thing with the key that fits in the top is ridiculously heavy. Let me have a look now. It's 44 grams. I believe when you have the actual key in it with the screws, it's closer to 50 grams. That to me is a ridiculous amount of weight. When, like I say, I'm kind of used to this. 3 grams. That's more my style. So I would never use this mount. But it is very substantial. It is very beefy. It comes with 2 different orientations for the screws. It comes with mounting points, I'm guessing, for lights and other things like that. So if you do have lights hanging off the underside of your computer, this is extremely sturdy. Oh, you're not going to break this anytime soon, even though it's made of plastic. So there you go. So a little bit heavy, too beefy for my liking. I wouldn't use it, but if you do mount lights and things on your bike, or even a camera, this is going to be absolutely fine. You're not going to drop it or lose it at all. Like I say, in the pack, you get 2 silicone bands for attaching it to your stem. Again, I just use cable ties. Rubber base plate for it. Don't use that. Now, you also get, with the option that I selected, this lovely silicone or rubber holder for the computer, which makes it look even beefier and chunkier, which I didn't like, and I wasn't interested in the additional weight of 11 grams as well, so I don't use that. I just attempt not to drop this thing. That is how I go about avoiding using that thing. So I try not to drop it. I have dropped this once, and that is a result of the lanyard. So I've never had a computer with a lanyard before, and I wasn't really sure what to do with it, so I just sort of strap it around my stem, hook it around the stem when I hook my computer on, so that if the computer, for whatever reason, does drop off the bike, it will get caught by the lanyard, which is good. But I was doing some DIY to my bike, some maintenance on my bike, and the lanyard and computer was on the table here on the desk, and I reached for a tool, and as I grabbed the tool, it hooked onto the lanyard and catapulted my computer onto the floor. That is the only time I've dropped this. I've dropped it once, and it doesn't seem to. I only had it for a few days. I dropped it once, and it doesn't seem to have come off badly at all. In fact, I can't even see any damage where it hit the floor. So it's robust enough to drop at least once. But generally speaking, I just try to avoid dropping it so I don't have to use the rubber protector. It also came with 2 of these little plastic screens that you can put on there. They're a bit like phone screens. They're not made of glass like phone screens, as far as I'm aware. They're just sort of a thick plastic. But these are designed, obviously, to be scratch-proof to protect your screen. This thing is super quick. This thing uploads the ride in seconds. So I love that aspect of it. But then that's just the fact that the age of these 2 devices is so different. I'm sure if you buy a modern Polar device, if they still sell bike computers, I know they're more into their wristwatches and things, to be honest with you, but if they do still sell these, or they sell something better than this, I'm sure it's faster nowadays, but this is really lightning quick. 10 seconds or less and your ride is uploaded. The other thing about connectivity is that, sometimes you lose connection because of various different geographical elements. So there is a bridge nearby. It's sort of a motorway bridge, and I go under it when I'm riding my training ride. And the polar device would lose connection about halfway under the bridge. It's a very short bridge. You're only under it for maybe 30 seconds, 40 seconds at most. But the polar device would lose connection about halfway under the bridge, and it would lose connection for quite a long time. And that would result in a big spike in your data that was basically artificial. If I'm wearing a heart rate monitor, I would get a massive heart rate spike, well over 200 beats. And if it was speed data, my speed would hit like 70 or 80 kilometers an hour instantly for no apparent reason. This one, when I go under the same bridge, it does lose connection, but it loses connection after the bridge, which is quite interesting. As I pass out from the other side of the bridge, it briefly loses connection and it regains it in a matter of seconds. It just comes up with a warning, lost connection. And like I say, about 6 seconds later, it regains connection. So it's a lot better at maintaining connection than the polar device ever was. Would I recommend you buy one? I'm happy with it.
I like it.
I'm genuinely happy with it. I'm happy with the money I spent on it. I wasn't sponsored, by the way, to do this video. This is all just my personal opinion. It was a device that you guys chose. So there you go. And I'm happy with your choice. I think you made a good choice, guys. If you have one of these, do let me know what you think of it in the comments below. But yeah, I would say if you're looking for a cheap computer that's got a lot of functionality, to be honest with you, it's more functionality than I will ever use. I only want relatively simple data. The most advanced thing that I even use is a heart rate monitor. I don't have a power meter. I don't see myself getting one anytime soon. So for me, it's absolutely fine. Generally speaking, I'd give it like 8, 9 out of 10, something like that. It's a definite would buy again. Having the knowledge that I have now, I would still buy it again. And I'm still satisfied with my purchase. There isn't really much I'd change about it. Like I said, only the buttons, really. And that's about it, folks. So thank you for watching. As always, if you want to buy it from the same guy I did, the delivery was reliable and it came on time and it was pretty quick. I can't guarantee you'll have the same experience, of course, because there are no guarantees in life, but I didn't have any issues with the seller on AliExpress. So, there you go. His name is there if you want to look him up and buy from the same dude or the same company. And as always, folks, when you're out riding, whatever you're riding, whatever computer you're using, please do stay safe, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye-bye.